thousands of Vietnam-era veterans miss out on benefits. They're actually eligible for sometimes over $3,000 a month, and many don't even realize it because they're relying on totally outdated rules.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Veterans Briefing. I mean, it sounds like a clickbait headline, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
When you hear a number like $3,000, the immediate instinct is to just assume there's some secret vault of VA money that no one told you about.
Right, like a hidden account somewhere.
Exactly. But that figure isn't a single magical check. It actually represents a very real mathematical gap in the current benefit system. Today, we're breaking down the recent massive changes to VA benefits, specifically how the PACT Act has opened completely new doors for Vietnam-era veterans.
And by the end of this discussion, you'll understand what presumptive conditions actually means, how the geographic map of eligible service locations has drastically expanded, and how understanding VA math can significantly change your monthly compensation.
Because the real tragedy here isn't just that veterans are injured. It's that so many are stuck at a 30% disability rating simply because they haven't updated their files since the 1980s.
Yeah, I mean, they filed that initial claim decades ago, got their 30%, which right now pays what, about $795 a month?
Right around there, yeah.
And then they just went on with their lives. They raised kids, built careers, and as new medical conditions cropped up, they never went back to the VA.
They just accepted it.
But meanwhile, the legal landscape underneath them was completely shifting. The VA has spent the last half-century slowly coming to terms with the long-term realities of herbicide exposure.
We're talking about Agent Orange, sprayed by the millions of gallons. And the government doesn't just automatically update your file when the science changes,
Oh, for sure. They aren't going to call you up.
Right. They don't call and say, hey, we finally acknowledge that the water you drank 50 years ago is causing your current illness. Here's your updated compensation. You have to initiate that process.
Which brings us to really the foundational concept of this entire discussion. If you're going to navigate this system today, you have to understand one specific word: presumptive.
Yes, presumptive. That single word is the difference between a claim that takes years of agonizing appeals and a claim that gets approved smoothly.
Because historically, the burden of proof was entirely on the veteran, right?
Entirely. If you developed a heart condition in, say, 2005, the VA required you to prove a direct medical link, nexus is what they call it, between that condition and a specific event during your service in 1969.
Which is, I mean, that's almost impossible.
It was a nightmare. You had to track down old unit commanders for buddy statements, dig through decades-old medical records, and find a doctor willing to write a really complex letter tying it all together. For a lot of guys, it was just an impossible mountain to climb.
I can't even imagine trying to find a guy I served with 40 years ago just to prove to the government that I was standing in a specific spot.
Yeah, most guys just gave up.
But a presumptive condition bypasses all of that.
It bypasses it entirely. When the VA categorizes a condition as presumptive, they are legally conceding that the illness came from your military service.
Wow.
Specifically, they're presuming it was caused by exposure to herbicides like Agent Orange. The law does the heavy lifting for you now.
So no more tracking down witnesses.
No witnesses. You don't need a medical nexus letter explaining the chemical interaction. Literally all you need is your official service record. Your DD-214 proving you served in a qualifying location at a qualifying time, and a current medical diagnosis from your doctor.
That is a massive paradigm shift. It takes a process that felt totally adversarial and turns it into a matter of just basic documentation.
Exactly.
And if the bar is now just a diagnosis and a service record, we really need to look at the medical reality of this generation. Because in August of 2022, the PACT Act added a condition to that presumptive list that changes the game for almost everyone.
High blood pressure.
Yeah, hypertension.
It is, without a doubt, the single most common medical condition for men of the Vietnam era. I mean, if you were to open the medicine cabinet of almost any veteran from that generation, you're going to find a blood pressure prescription.
Oh, absolutely.
But the psychological barrier here is that most of them have never once connected that daily pill to their time in the service.
Right, because society tells us that high blood pressure is just a normal part of getting older. You hit your 70s, your doctor puts you on a pill, and you chalk it up to, bad luck, genetics, or just eating too much salt over the years.
Yeah, you just think it's normal wear and tear.
You never stop to think, maybe the toxic chemicals I breathed in when I was 20 years old fundamentally altered my vascular system. It's like having a winning lottery ticket sitting right in your medicine cabinet, but you just assume it expired.
That's a great way to put it. And
Yeah.
the science behind this is actually fascinating and really sobering. Dioxins, which are the highly toxic byproducts found in Agent Orange,
Mm,
they don't just cause acute poisoning.
right.
They cause long-term cellular disruption. Research has increasingly shown that these chemicals accelerate vascular aging.
Wow, so it actually ages your blood vessels faster.
Exactly. They cause changes in the cellular lining of your blood vessels, leading to arterial stiffness. So while aging certainly plays a role, the exposure essentially acts as an accelerant. And the VA has finally recognized this biological mechanism by law.
But there is a massive catch here that we have to highlight because it is actively costing people money every single month. And it revolves around the date the law changed.
August 2022.
Right.
This is a crucial administrative reality that people miss. Because hypertension was only added to the presumptive list in late 2022, every single veteran who tried to do the right thing and file a claim for high blood pressure before that date was judged under an old, outdated set of rules.
And because it wasn't presumptive back then, they got hit with that impossible burden of proof you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. And consequently, thousands of veterans received denial letters.
And you know how it is. When a veteran gets a formal denial letter from the federal government, they usually take it as gospel.
Oh, yeah. They think, well, I tried, they said no, end of story. They file it in a drawer and never bring it up again.
But you're saying that old denial is basically obsolete now?
It means absolutely nothing today. A denial from 2015 or 2010 was based on a legal framework that no longer exists. If you were denied for high blood pressure in the past, you must refile under the new PACT Act rules.
So they have to start a new claim.
Yes. The mechanism is there, the law is on your side, and letting a piece of paper from a decade ago stop you from getting the compensation you deserve today is just a tragic mistake.
If you're finding these discussions helpful, please subscribe to Veterans Briefing so you never miss important updates and practical information for veterans and their families.
Let's shift our focus a bit to the geography of this issue.
Yeah, let's talk about the map.
Because we know hypertension is covered now. But the next logical question is, who exactly qualifies? For decades, the phrase Agent Orange exposure was treated as if it were entirely synonymous with having boots on the ground in the jungles of Vietnam.
Right. If you didn't physically step foot in the country, the VA essentially told you that you were out of luck.
Which defies all basic logic when you just think about logistics.
I mean, you don't just magically teleport millions of gallons of toxic chemicals into a war zone.
No, you don't. It has to be manufactured, shipped across the ocean, stored on bases, loaded onto planes, and sprayed. That entire supply chain involves thousands of people.
I want to look specifically at Thailand because for years, guys stationed there were caught in this absurd bureaucratic loophole called the perimeter rule.
Ugh, the perimeter rule.
For decades, guys stationed in Thailand were told they didn't qualify because they worked in a hangar, not on the perimeter fence. Has that changed?
Yes, thankfully. The perimeter rule was one of the most frustrating bureaucratic fictions the VA ever created. It basically assumed that a volatile chemical somehow knew to stay exactly on the fence line and not drift in the wind or contaminate the soil or get tracked into the hangars on the boots of the personnel.
It makes no sense.
It made zero sense. But the PACT Act finally killed the perimeter rule. Today, if you served anywhere on a United States or Royal Thai military base in Thailand, any base, regardless of your specific MOS or daily duties between January of 1962 and June of 1976, you qualify for the presumption of exposure.
That alone brings thousands of veterans back into the fold.
Oh, easily.
But the map expands far beyond Thailand. Because if we follow that logistical supply chain, we have to look at the Pacific Islands, specifically Guam.
Guam was a massive logistical hub. The chemicals were stored there, handled there, and the environment was exposed. Under the new rules, Guam, American Samoa, and their territorial waters are now fully covered from January 1962 all the way through July of 1980.
Wow, so almost a 20-year window.
Yeah. And we also have to include Johnston Atoll, which is covered from 1972 through 1977.
What about areas where the chemicals were actively used outside of Vietnam? We know there were secret bombing and defoliation campaigns.
The government has formally acknowledged those campaigns for the purposes of these benefits now. Laos is covered from December 1965 through September of 1969.
Okay.
For Cambodia, specifically locations at Mem Mot or Krek, the qualifying date is April 1969, and we can't forget the Korean DMZ.
Right, they used a lot of defoliants there.
Heavily. Agent Orange was sprayed there to maintain a clear line of sight and eliminate vegetative cover. If you served in or near the demilitarized zone for any length of time between September 1967 and August 1971, you qualify.
And we absolutely must talk about the Navy. The Blue Water Navy veterans fought for years to get recognition because, again, the VA was operating under this wild assumption that if you were on a ship off the coast, you were totally safe from the chemicals sprayed on land.
Which completely ignored how Navy ships actually operated. I mean, these ships were pulling in water from the ocean right off the coast where the rivers of Vietnam were emptying chemical runoff.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about the river runoff.
Yeah, and they were running that contaminated water through their shipboard desalination plants.
So,
now, desalination removes salt, but it actually concentrates certain chemicals, including dioxins.
that's terrifying.
It is. The sailors were drinking this water, bathing in it, cooking with it. The law now recognizes this. If you were a Navy veteran operating a vessel within 12 nautical miles of the Vietnamese coast, you have the exact same presumptive status as a soldier who was patrolling the jungle.
Okay, so let's synthesize where we are for the listener. You have a qualifying condition like high blood pressure, and you see your service location, whether it's Guam, Thailand, or the coastal waters, is finally on the map. How does this actually translate to your monthly compensation? How do you jump from that $700 mark to knocking on the door of $4,000? This brings us to a concept that I know makes a lot of people pull their hair out: VA math.
Oh, VA math. It is deeply counterintuitive. When veterans first encounter the combined ratings table, they always assume the VA is just trying to cheat them out of money.
Right, because if I have a 30% disability for a bad knee from 1969, and the VA agrees I have another 30% disability for my back, basic grade school math says 30 plus 30 is 60.
Exactly.
But in the VA system, 30 plus 30 equals 51, which they then round down to a 50% total rating.
It's frustrating, but to understand why, you have to think about what they call the whole person concept. The underlying logic is that a person can never be more than 100% disabled.
Right.
So every time you add a new disability, the VA isn't adding it to your total. They're only taking a percentage of your remaining healthy, able-bodied percentage.
Let me use an analogy to make this mechanical because the abstract numbers get confusing fast. Think of your health as a 10-slice pizza.
I like this analogy.
When you get your first 30% rating for that bad knee, the VA takes 3 slices of the pizza. You now have 7 slices left. If you get a second condition rated at 30%, they don't take 3 more slices from the original whole pizza.
Right, they can't.
They take 30% of the remaining 7 slices. That's roughly 2 slices. So instead of 6 slices taken, it's only 5. As you get closer to 100%, the slices get smaller and smaller, making it mathematically much harder to reach that final tier.
It's a system of diminishing returns. However, once you understand how to navigate it, this is exactly how the PACT Act bridges that massive financial gap for older veterans.
How so?
It isn't about discovering one catastrophic 100% injury 50 years later. It's about stacking.
Stacking. Let's run a concrete example so people can visualize this. Let's take a veteran who has been sitting at that 30% mark for a bad knee since 1970. What happens when they finally add these newly presumptive conditions?
Okay, so they file for their hypertension, which typically comes back at a 10% rating. Then they claim their type 2 diabetes, which is often rated at 20%.
Okay, so they're building the claim.
Right. Then they claim ischemic heart disease, which is a severe condition where your arteries narrow, restricting blood flow and oxygen to the heart, another known consequence of Agent Orange. Let's say that comes in at 60%. And finally, they add the hearing loss they've ignored for 40 years, getting another 10%.
So under standard math, that's 30 for the knee, plus 10, 20, 60, and 10. That adds up to 130%.
Which is impossible in the VA's eyes. So we run it through the compounding math of the combined ratings table, taking those progressively smaller slices of the pizza. When you calculate those specific service-connected conditions together, that veteran jumps from their original 30% rating all the way to an 80% combined rating.
Wow.
And depending on how that ischemic heart disease affects their daily ability to function and work, they could easily be pushed to a 100% rating.
That's incredible.
By stacking multiple undeniable medical realities, their compensation jumps from under $800 a month to potentially over $3,000.
That is life-changing money. But, even knowing this math, there is a massive mental block we have to address.
Yeah, the age factor.
Exactly. Because
Yeah.
if you sit down with a 78-year-old veteran and explain this, a lot of them will just wave you off. They'll say, look, I'm pushing 80. The VA is a bureaucratic nightmare. Is this even worth the trouble at my age? I'm doing okay financially.
And you hear that all the time. The emotional exhaustion is entirely valid. The system has not been kind to this generation. But there is a vital, non-selfish reason to endure the paperwork one last time.
Right.
While the money is a tax-free benefit for the rest of your life, establishing a service-connected condition right now is crucial for securing survivor benefits for your spouse later on.
This is the part that changes the conversation entirely. We're talking about DIC, right? Dependency and indemnity compensation.
Correct. If a veteran passes away and their official cause of death is linked to a recognized service-connected condition, their surviving spouse becomes eligible for DIC.
And what does that look like?
It is a monthly, tax-free payment designed to ensure the surviving spouse isn't left destitute. But here's the catch. If you never bother to connect your ischemic heart disease or your hypertension to your service while you're alive, and you eventually pass away from a heart attack, the VA isn't going to proactively connect those dots for your spouse.
They won't do the detective work after you're gone.
No, they won't. Doing the paperwork today might be the single most important financial protection you can leave behind for your family.
It's not about fighting for yourself anymore. It's about setting up the perimeter for your family.
Precisely.
And while we've focused a lot on high blood pressure and heart disease today, we really should touch on the other conditions because the list is quite extensive. The PACT Act added a few highly specific ones to be aware of, right?
It did. One of the more complex additions is monoclonal gammopathy of undetermined significance, commonly referred to as MGUS.
MGUS.
Yeah. It's a condition where there's an abnormal protein in your blood. On its own, it doesn't always cause immediate symptoms, but it is known to be a precursor to serious blood cancers like multiple myeloma.
Got it.
The VA now recognizes that Agent Orange exposure triggers this cellular abnormality.
Oh.
They also added hypothyroidism, bladder cancer, and Parkinsonism, which is a broader diagnostic category that covers movement disorders mimicking Parkinson's disease, even if you don't have classical Parkinson's.
And these join the older presumptive conditions that have been covered for years, like type 2 diabetes, Parkinson's, and early onset peripheral neuropathy.
Yes.
Which is that chronic numbness, tingling, or weakness in the hands and feet caused by nerve damage. A lot of guys just assume their hands hurt because they worked construction for 40 years, but it's actually neurotoxicity from the herbicides.
It's so common.
Yeah.
And there is one final layer to the compensation structure that sits outside the normal VA math table, and it's called Special Monthly Compensation, or SMC.
How does SMC differ from the regular percentage ratings?
SMC is designed for veterans who suffer from specific, severe consequences of these diseases, so profound losses of function. For example, the loss of use of a limb, blindness, or condition so severe that the veteran requires regular aid and attendance from another person just to manage daily life.
Okay, so it's extra help.
Right. It is an additional tier of financial support that stacks on top of your standard disability pay to help cover the cost of care. But here is the tragedy. The VA will not automatically evaluate you for it.
Right.
If you need daily help bathing or dressing because of your service-connected Parkinson's, you have to specifically apply for SMC. If you don't ask for it, they will not offer it.
Wow. You really have to advocate for yourself every step of the way. So, synthesizing everything we've covered today, let's nail down the top 3 takeaways you need to walk away with. First, hypertension is now a presumptive condition.
Yes.
If you were denied for it before August of 2022, that old denial means absolutely nothing today. Refile.
Second, the map has expanded. You didn't have to serve in Vietnam to qualify. Thailand, Guam, Korea, Laos, Cambodia, and the coastal waters are now fully recognized.
And third, VA math means you don't need one massive new injury. Stacking several smaller presumptive conditions can completely transform your rating and your monthly compensation.
Exactly. Which brings us to one practical action you can take today. Go to veda.gov and pull your complete disability rating history. Look at the dates.
You gotta check those dates.
If you haven't added a condition in more than 5 years, your file is almost certainly incomplete. And when you are ready to file, contact an accredited veteran service organization, a VSO, like the DAV, VFW, or American Legion, for free help.
Yes, please. Never pay out of pocket for this.
Never. Use the free accredited experts.
And we'd love to hear from you. Share your experiences with VA claims or drop your questions in the comments below. The system is incredibly complex, and veterans sharing their knowledge with each other is just one of the most powerful tools we have.
We encourage you to subscribe to the channel for more practical veteran resources.
Thank you for watching Veterans Briefing. Take care, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next episode.